Transformation always begins with a question, one that many people avoid because it's uncomfortable, confronting, and often inconvenient. But it is also the most liberating question you will ever ask yourself. Why? Why do you want to transform your life? Why do you want things to be different this time? Why is the version of you that you imagine worth fighting for? Most people skip this question and rush straight into the what and the how. They say, I want to lose weight, I want more money, I want a better mindset, or I want more success. But wanting something isn't the same as being anchored to it without a reason, an internal engine. You will run out of fuel long before you reach the destination. The truth is simple. People don't fail because the goal is impossible. They fail because their why isn't strong enough to sustain them through the difficult, unglamorous, exhausting days when transformation feels like a burden instead of a dream. Purpose is the invisible force that keeps you standing when motivation collapses. It's the thing that makes you say, I will try again. Even when everything inside you whispers, maybe this isn't worth it. Think back to the last time you tried to change your life. Maybe it was a fitness goal, a business idea, a new routine, or a promise you made to yourself on a quiet night. At the beginning, you were excited. You felt unstoppable, but then life happened. You got busy, you got tired. You lost focus, not because the goal lacked value. Every meaningful goal has value. You lost focus because the purpose behind the goal wasn't clearly defined. Purpose is what gives staying power. Purpose is what turns goals into commitments. Purpose is what transforms a moment of inspiration into a lifestyle of consistency. Most people live their lives reacting instead of acting. They wait for life to push them before they decide to move. They wait for pain, rock bottom, heartbreak, or failure to force them to change. But transformation rooted in reaction is unstable. It's temporary, it fades when the emotion fades. Lasting transformation begins with intention. An internal decision that says, this matters to me because... And the second part of that sentence becomes your anchor. When you understand your why, something shifts inside you. You stop competing with other people and start aligning with your own values. You stop seeking validation and start seeking meaning. You stop measuring your progress by external standards and start measuring it by internal growth. That shift creates a different kind of strength. A kind of strength that doesn't depend on applause or recognition. A strength that comes from knowing your journey is bigger than a single moment and bigger than the opinions of others. Your why is personal, it's emotional, it's often painful, and that's exactly why it works. Humans don't move because of logic alone. They move because of emotion, because something within them refuses to accept the old reality. Maybe your why is your family. Maybe it's your future. Maybe it's a dream you buried years ago but still feel in your chest. Maybe it's proving to yourself that you are more than what life made you believe. Or maybe it's simply the desire to stop surviving and start living. Whatever it is, your why must be honest. It must be real, and it must be yours. When you wake up every morning and remember why you started, you approach the day differently. You handle challenges differently. You see setbacks differently. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin to ask, how does this help me get closer to what I care about? That single shift in perspective changes everything. It turns obstacles into teachers. It turns hardship into preparation. It turns every day into an opportunity rather than an obligation. There will be days in 2026 when you won't feel inspired. There will be days when the vision feels too far away, when progress feels invisible, when you doubt yourself. But when you know your why, you can withstand those days. You can remind yourself that transformation is not about perfection. It's about direction. It's about knowing that even on your difficult days, you are moving towards something that deeply matters to you. Purpose also gives clarity. When you know your why, you stop wasting time on things that don't align with your future. You stop saying yes to everything. You stop letting distractions steal your potential. Purpose becomes a filter. You learn what to keep, what to drop, and what to walk away from. Decisions become easier because you're no longer choosing based on convenience, you're choosing based on alignment. And perhaps the most powerful part of knowing your why is that it gives meaning to the struggle. Transformation is never painless. But pain with purpose becomes progress. Pain without purpose becomes suffering. When the difficulty in your journey has meaning, it no longer feels like punishment. It feels like preparation. So before you try to change your habits, your environment, your routine, or your lifestyle in 2026, stop and ask yourself the most important question of all. Why do I want this? Take the time to answer it honestly. Write it down, feel it, return to it often, because that answer will be the force that carries you through the year. It will be the foundation for every rule that follows. And once your why is clear, your transformation is no longer a possibility. It becomes a commitment. Consistency is one of the most misunderstood forces in human transformation. People love big goals, dramatic declarations, and the excitement of starting something new. It feels empowering to say, "This year will be different," or "I'm finally going to change my life." But the truth is, your life doesn't change in a single moment of motivation. It changes in the quiet, repetitive, unglamorous moments when you choose to do the right thing again and again, even when no one is watching. Consistent daily habits are the real architects of transformation because they shape not just your results but your identity. When you think about the most successful people you admire, not by fame or wealth, but by character, discipline, and authenticity, you'll notice a pattern. They don't rely on motivation. They rely on structure. They don't chase intensity, they build routine. They don't try to win every day with explosive effort, they win by showing up. Transformation is not a challenge of capability, it's a challenge of consistency. Most people are capable of extraordinary effort for a short period of time. Very few are willing to sustain ordinary effort for an extended period. But ordinary effort, repeated without fail, becomes extraordinary. The problem is that many people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. When they don't see immediate results, they convince themselves that their effort isn't working. They quit right before the compound effect kicks in. Habits don't give you instant gratification, they give you delayed transformation. There's a silent compounding that happens beneath the surface, one you can't see until suddenly. You can't ignore it. Every time you perform a habit, even a small one, you cast a vote for the type of person you want to become. Go to the gym even for 10 minutes, that's a vote for being someone who prioritizes health. Read 5 pages of a book. A vote for being someone who invests in personal growth. Wake up on time even when it's difficult. A vote for being someone who respects their commitments. You don't need perfection to transform your life. You need a pattern of consistent votes that build your identity. You see, habits shape identity, and identity shapes behavior. When you act consistently, you begin to see yourself differently. You stop trying to become the person you want to be and start believing you already are. And when your identity evolves, your actions naturally follow. Identity-driven change is the most powerful type of change because it becomes who you are, not something you force yourself to do. But consistency requires discipline, and discipline requires removing friction. People fail not because they're weak, but because their environment is designed for failure. They rely on willpower alone, and willpower is unreliable. The more friction between you and your habit, the harder it becomes. If your goal is to read daily, but your books are buried somewhere in a drawer, you've added friction. If your goal is to work out, but your workout clothes aren't ready, you've added friction. If your goal is to build a business after work, but your workspace is cluttered and uninspiring, you've added friction. The key is simple. Design your environment for consistency. Make the right behaviors easy and the wrong behaviors inconvenient. Consistency also requires starting small. So small it feels almost too easy. Most people fail because they try to transform their lives in a single leap. They overhaul everything at once, and then they burn out. Small habits are sustainable. Small habits lower resistance. Small habits create momentum. Momentum creates belief, and belief fuels transformation. A tiny change repeated daily eventually becomes a powerful identity shift. There is also an emotional side to consistency. Many people sabotage their habits because they believe effort should always feel good. They think discipline should feel inspiring, but in reality, most of the time, consistency feels boring. It feels repetitive, it feels predictable, and that's exactly why it works. Predictability builds stability. Stability builds confidence, confidence builds progress, and progress builds transformation. You don't need excitement to succeed, you need resilience. You need the humility to repeat simple actions without immediate reward. The beauty of consistent habits is that they keep you connected to your future. When you take small steps every day, you create an ongoing conversation between the person you are now and the person you are becoming. That connection strengthens your sense of purpose. It reminds you that you're not simply living day to day, you're building something. Even on days you feel lost or unmotivated, your habits keep you anchored to your vision, and here's the remarkable truth. Consistency compounds not only in results, but in character. Every time you follow through on a habit, no matter how small, you reinforce trust in yourself. You prove that you can rely on yourself. Trust is one of the most undervalued assets a person can have. When you trust yourself, you stop negotiating with excuses. You stop doubting your capabilities. You stop breaking promises to yourself. And people who trust themselves are unstoppable. Consistency also creates clarity. When you commit to daily habits, you naturally filter out things that don't support your transformation. The more consistent you are, the less distracted you become. The less distracted you are, the more progress you make. Progress, even slow progress, builds enthusiasm. And enthusiasm, when paired with discipline, becomes unstoppable. So as you move through 2026, don't focus on massive actions. Focus on small, intentional, consistent habits. They may feel insignificant today, but 6 months from now, they will become the foundation of your transformation. And a year from now, they will become the story you tell when someone asks you how your life changed so completely. Consistency isn't glamorous, but it's powerful. It is the quiet force that transforms dreams into reality, actions into identity, and ordinary days into extraordinary outcomes. Growth is never born inside comfort. We all love the idea of change, the idea of becoming better, the idea of stepping into a stronger, more capable version of ourselves. But the moment that change requires discomfort, most people retreat. They go back to what is familiar, even if the familiar is slowly destroying them. Human beings are wired to seek safety, predictability, and ease. But transformation requires the exact opposite. If you want to evolve in 2026, you must make a deliberate choice to prioritize courage over comfort. And this choice isn't a one-time decision, it's a daily discipline. Comfort feels warm, but it also keeps you small. It keeps you repeating the same routines, the same thoughts, the same fears, the same limitations. It convinces you that you're not ready, not capable, not strong enough. Comfort whispers excuses that sound like logic. I'll start tomorrow. The timing isn't right. I'm not prepared yet. I don't want to fail. But these aren't truth. They are simply protections, and protections often become prisons. Courage is what breaks those walls. Courage is what tells you you don't need perfect conditions, you need movement. It's not about eliminating fear. It's about choosing action despite fear. People often misunderstand courage. They imagine it as a loud, dramatic act, a leap, a big moment, but true courage rarely looks cinematic. Most of the time, courage is quiet. It's the decision to show up to a difficult conversation. It's the decision to begin a project you've been avoiding. It's the decision to admit you're wrong, or that you need help, or that you want more from life than what you've settled for. Courage is uncomfortable because it threatens the version of yourself you've been holding on to, even if that version isn't the one you want to remain. The uncomfortable truth is that growth requires friction. Think about how muscles grow. They grow by being stretched, challenged, and broken down so they can rebuild stronger. The mind is no different. When you remain in comfort, you deny yourself the tension required for growth. And without tension, without challenge, without vulnerability, transformation becomes impossible. Nothing magnificent has ever been born from ease. Courage is also the antidote to fear, not because it removes fear, but because it prevents fear from being the decision maker. Fear will always present itself before any meaningful step, before you start a new business, before you end a toxic relationship, before you try something new, before you admit you want more. But courage allows you to feel fear and move anyway. And once you move, something remarkable happens. The fear shrinks. The moment you act, you prove to yourself that the fear wasn't a wall, just a shadow. When you choose courage over comfort, you expand your life. Every courageous act broadens your sense of possibility. You begin thinking bigger, acting bolder, and believing more deeply in your own potential. You start seeing opportunities where you once saw obstacles. You start noticing strengths you didn't realize you had. You start respecting yourself in ways you never did before, because courage builds self-respect. Comfort never does. People sometimes say, "I'm waiting for the right moment," but courage doesn't wait. Courage creates the right moment. Transformation doesn't happen when conditions are perfect. It happens when you decide to move. Even a single step taken in courage can alter the trajectory of your life. That's the thing about courage, its impact is disproportionate. One courageous decision can change everything that comes after it, but courage also requires honesty. You must be willing to confront truths about yourself, truths you've perhaps buried under routine and repetition. Courage asks you to look at the parts of your life that aren't working, to acknowledge the habits that keep you stagnant, to face the relationships that drain you, to admit the dreams you've been delaying, to confront the fears that rule your decisions. Honesty is uncomfortable, but it is the doorway to freedom. There is also a vulnerability in courage. To be courageous is to be exposed, to risk disappointment, embarrassment, judgment, or failure, but avoiding vulnerability comes at a cost too. When you avoid vulnerability, you avoid growth, you avoid experiences that could shape you, you avoid opportunities that might elevate you. You avoid the deeper, fuller life that exists just beyond your comfort zone. The pain of regret is heavier than the discomfort of courage. Regret stays with you, discomfort passes. What many don't realize is that courage becomes easier through repetition. The more you act courageously, the more your tolerance for discomfort grows. Eventually, the unfamiliar becomes familiar. The once intimidating becomes normal, and you begin trusting yourself more. You begin believing that you can handle difficult things because you've already handled difficult things. That belief becomes one of your greatest strengths. In 2026, if you truly want to transform your life, you must be willing to enter rooms that intimidate you, attempt ideas that challenge you, pursue goals that stretch you, and embrace uncertainty rather than hide from it. Courage is the gateway to everything you want: better relationships, stronger discipline, greater success, deeper fulfillment. And comfort is the gatekeeper blocking that path. The question you must keep asking yourself is simple: am I choosing growth or am I choosing comfort? Every decision you make this year will fall into one of those categories, and every time you choose courage, even in the smallest way, you move closer to the person you are capable of becoming. You don't need to be fearless to transform your life. You just need to be brave enough to take the next step. And then the next, and then the next. Transformation doesn't require perfection. It requires courage, repeated consistently, even when it feels uncomfortable. Especially when it feels uncomfortable. Because everything you want is sitting on the other side of that discomfort, waiting for you to choose it. Your environment is one of the most powerful forces shaping your life, yet it is also one of the most overlooked. We like to believe we are independent thinkers, that our willpower is strong, that our discipline is self-created. But the truth is far more subtle and far more humbling. Human beings are influenced by the people, places, and energies around them more than they realize. Your environment can nurture your growth or quietly sabotage it. It can lift you higher or slowly drain your potential. If you want to transform your life in 2026, you must protect your environment with the same seriousness you protect your goals. Most people underestimate the quiet power of the circles they keep. They think relationships exist in a neutral space. They assume they can pursue growth while surrounding themselves with negativity, doubt, or complacency. But environments are never neutral. They are either propelling you forward or pulling you backward. The mind is permeable. It absorbs attitudes, beliefs, and expectations from the people closest to it. Spend time around people who complain, and you start to see the world in problems. Spend time around people who dream, and you begin to see the world in possibilities. Spend time around people who play small, and you will shrink yourself to match them. Spend time around people who think boldly, and your own thinking expands. Your environment is a mirror. It reflects who you are and influences who you will become. If you want to know where your life is headed, take a close look at who you spend your time with. The people in your life don't need to be perfect, but they should be aligned with the direction you want to go. They should challenge you, not belittle you. They should support you, not enable your excuses. They should make you feel capable, not drained. The right people encourage growth without envy, offer honesty without cruelty, and inspire you without trying to outshine you. But protecting your environment isn't just about people, it's about energy. Your physical spaces matter more than you realize. A cluttered space often reflects and reinforces a cluttered mind. A chaotic environment breeds distraction. A worn-out routine breeds stagnation. When you create spaces that reflect order, intention, and clarity, you reinforce those qualities within yourself. Even small changes, cleaning your workspace, organizing your home, surrounding yourself with uplifting visuals, send subtle signals to your mind. This is a place where growth happens. This is a place where I take myself seriously. And then there's the emotional environment, the conversations you engage in, the stories you repeat, the beliefs you entertain. If your inner environment is full of self-doubt, criticism, or fear, no external change will last. You have to curate your internal world with the same care you curate your external one. You must be intentional about the thoughts you feed yourself, the words you speak to yourself, and the narratives you choose to believe. Every story you repeat becomes part of your identity. Every belief you reinforce becomes part of your behavior. And every behavior shapes your life. Here's the difficult part. Protecting your environment often requires letting go. Letting go of relationships that no longer support your growth. Letting go of habits that keep you stagnant. Letting go of routines that once served you but no longer align with who you are becoming. Letting go of familiar but limiting patterns. Letting go hurts not because it's wrong, but because it requires stepping out of emotional comfort. But you cannot cling to environments that shrink you and expect to grow. You cannot surround yourself with people who doubt you and expect to feel confident. You cannot live in spaces that drain you and expect to feel energized. Growth requires boundaries, not walls. Just clear, healthy boundaries. You don't need to cut everyone out of your life, nor do you need to isolate yourself. But you do need to be intentional about what you allow into your mind, your space, and your heart. You must decide which voices get volume and which voices get silence, whose opinions matter and whose opinions simply exist, who grows with you and who holds you back. When you surround yourself with the right people, people who push you, support you, and challenge you, your potential expands. Great environments create momentum. They make discipline easier, not harder. They make courage feel natural. They make challenges feel shared rather than solitary. When you're in the right environment, your dreams feel possible because you're surrounded by people who believe in growth, in effort, in purpose, in vision. The wrong environment does the opposite. It kills dreams quietly, not all at once, but slowly, through subtle comments, casual negativity, quiet doubts, and small limitations. You begin shrinking your goals because they feel too unrealistic in the eyes of those around you. You begin lowering your energy because others don't match it. You begin settling because settling becomes normalized. Without realizing it, your environment reshapes your ambitions to fit its level of expectation. If you want to transform your life this year, you must elevate your environment before you try to elevate your results. Take inventory of your relationships, your spaces, and your inner dialogue. Ask yourself, does this support who I'm becoming? If the answer is no, you don't have to eliminate everything overnight. You simply need to create distance, physical, emotional, or psychological. Transformation is a process of alignment. You align your habits with your goals, you align your actions with your purpose, and you align your environment with your future. Your environment has the power to influence your success more than motivation, discipline, or talent. It is the soil in which your potential grows, and no matter how strong the seed, it cannot thrive in toxic soil. Choose your environment with intention, build it with care, protect it fiercely. Because when your environment supports your growth, transformation becomes not just possible but inevitable. Long-term thinking is one of the rarest skills in a world that worships immediacy. We live in a culture where patience is treated almost like a weakness, where people want results today, validation now, and success without the wait. But transformation, the kind that lasts, the kind that reshapes your identity, the kind that makes you unrecognizable even to yourself, never happens overnight. It unfolds slowly, quietly, gradually, and the people who experience true transformation are not the ones who chase quick wins. They are the ones who learn to think beyond the moment. Most people limit their growth because they judge themselves by what they see today. If they don't see immediate progress, they assume nothing is happening. They quit because the reward isn't instant. They give up because the effort doesn't immediately match the outcome. But long-term thinkers understand that progress often begins beneath the surface. Like a seed planted in the ground, nothing appears to be happening at first. But deep below, roots are forming, strength is being built, foundations are being laid. Without this unseen stage, the growth that eventually becomes visible would never survive. When you think long-term, you free yourself from the pressure of rushing. You realize that growth is not a race. It's not about speed, it's about direction. It's about taking steps that align with your purpose, even when those steps feel small or insignificant. Long-term thinking allows you to be patient with your progress because you understand that transformation isn't measured in days or weeks, it's measured in seasons. Each season has a purpose, and you cannot harvest in the same moment you plant. The challenge is that the human mind is wired for immediate reward. It seeks dopamine, reassurance, visible improvement. When those things don't show up quickly, frustration sets in. Long-term thinking requires you to override this impulse. It requires you to trust the process even when you cannot see the outcome. It requires you to commit to actions that may not produce immediate gratification, but will produce powerful results months or years down the line. This mindset frees you from comparison as well. When you think short-term, you constantly compare your pace to someone else's highlight reel. You look at people who are ahead and wonder why you're not there yet. You feel behind, but long-term thinkers don't compete with others, they align with their own journey. They understand that meaningful progress looks different for everyone, and that the speed of growth matters far less than the direction of growth. When you focus on the next decade instead of the next week, the noise around you becomes irrelevant. Long-term thinking also shapes your decisions in profound ways. You begin choosing what's right over what's easy. You start prioritizing actions that build your character, not just your comfort. You begin investing your time, energy, and attention into things that will matter years from now, not just today. You resist the temptation of shortcuts because you understand that shortcuts take away the struggle, and the struggle is what builds strength. There is a sense of peace that comes with thinking long-term. Life becomes less reactive. You stop chasing moments and start building momentum. You stop seeking instant approval and start seeking long-lasting fulfillment. You begin to trust that everything you're doing today is part of a bigger picture, even if that picture isn't fully clear yet. And that trust becomes a source of resilience, but long-term thinking also requires sacrifice. It requires giving up some pleasures today for a greater purpose tomorrow. It requires delaying gratification, even when the rest of the world is telling you to indulge now and worry later. It requires consistency even when progress feels invisible. It requires discipline even when distractions are tempting. And most importantly, it requires faith in your future, faith in your growth, and faith in the work you're doing. People often underestimate how much their future depends on the decisions they make today. A single choice can influence the next month, the next year, or even the next decade. That's the power of long-term thinking. It forces you to consider the future consequences of your actions. It asks not what feels good now, but what contributes to who I want to become. When you begin asking that question regularly, your entire life changes direction. Long-term thinking also strengthens your sense of identity. When you live only for the moment, your identity becomes fragile. It shifts based on your mood, your environment, or the opinions of others. But when you think in decades, your identity becomes rooted in a deeper sense of purpose. You begin to see yourself not just as who you are now, but as who you are becoming. That vision acts like a North Star guiding your actions, shaping your discipline, and grounding your decisions. The truth is, most people overestimate what they can achieve in a week and underestimate what they can achieve in a year or a decade. Long-term thinkers flip that equation. They understand that small, consistent actions compounded over time create extraordinary results. They understand that patience is not passive, it is active commitment. They understand that the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. As you move through 2026, long-term thinking will be one of your greatest strengths. It will keep you grounded when progress is slow. It will keep you focused when distractions arise. It will keep you motivated when the journey feels overwhelming. And it will remind you that transformation is not about instant perfection, it's about continuous elevation. When you look back one day, you won't remember the days that felt slow or stagnant. You'll remember the courage you had to keep going. You'll remember the consistency you practiced when no one was watching. You'll remember the discipline you maintained even when the reward was far away. And you'll realize that every moment of patience built the life you were destined to live.